On April 17th, the world bore witness to a strategic shockwave that reverberated far beyond the dusty coastlines of Yemen. At precisely 1:17 a.m. local time, the United States launched a surgical and high-impact military strike on the Raziza fuel port, a critical logistics and command hub operated by Houthi forces in western Yemen. Though cloaked for years as civilian infrastructure, Raziza had become an underground epicenter for arms, fuel smuggling, and drone warfare. In just 6 minutes, that facade collapsed. This was no ordinary airstrike. It was a turning point in how the United States responds to asymmetric threats, and a declaration that red lines drawn by militant groups no longer carry weight when national interests and global stability are at stake. Raziza. From fuel port to fortress. For over a decade, the Raziza port enjoyed de facto immunity. Even during intense bombardments by the Saudi-led coalition, the port was left untouched. Publicly, it was considered a civilian terminal. Privately, intelligence agencies knew better. Satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and signal intelligence, SIGINT, painted a damning portrait. Raziza wasn't just moving oil. It was trafficking weapons. Mobile command units were stationed there for hours. Communications traffic surged at night. Supply routes from the port fed drone production sites deep inland. To the Houthis, Raziza wasn't merely infrastructure, it was survival. Oil pumped through the port funded their operations and bolstered their regional influence. Every barrel that left its gates translated into missiles launched or drones assembled. The final provocation? The weeks leading to the strike saw an escalation in Houthi aggression. Red Sea shipping lanes became perilous. U.S. Navy destroyers were locked by radar. An American MQ-9 Reaper drone was shot down. A surface-to-air missile narrowly missed an F-16 patrolling international waters. The Houthis were no longer testing boundaries. They were daring the United States to respond. Their strategic calculation appeared to be that Washington would continue its cautious approach to conflict management. They were wrong. A coordinated strike unleashed. The answer came not in words but in precision-guided fire. Launching from a carrier strike group positioned in the Red Sea, 4 FA-18 Super Hornets roared into the night. Their payloads included GBU-38 JDAMs designed to penetrate reinforced structures and AGM-88 HARM missiles to eliminate radar threats. 2 EA-18G Growler jets soared ahead to jam enemy signals, while an MQ-4C Triton drone orbited silently at 55,000 feet, streaming thermal imagery and tracking electromagnetic pulses from underground nodes. Their targets were mapped down to the centimeter. Northern fuel depots suspected of housing mobile missile launchers. Underground tunnels used for arms smuggling. A command center embedded within a warehouse complex. Signal relay towers transmitting encrypted battlefield data. At 1:17 a.m., the Growlers blinded Houthi defense systems, paralyzing early warning radars. Seconds later, the Super Hornets skimmed over the Red Sea at sea-skimming altitudes, unleashing their payloads in synchronized precision. Explosions lit up the night like controlled lightning. A chain reaction tore through Raziza's northern sector. Fuel tanks erupted. Secondary blasts confirmed the presence of munitions. Satellite relays went dark. Communications collapsed. Within 6 minutes, 17 high-value targets were neutralized. Shockwaves beyond Yemen. Though no civilian casualties were reported, the strike rattled the region. Coalition allies called emergency briefings. Oil markets convulsed. And within hours, social media erupted with conflicting narratives. Houthi channels claimed they had repelled the attack. Their evidence? Recycled footage of a downed drone. Timestamp and location conspicuously absent. But intelligence and imagery told the real story. Raziza was ashes. Thermal scans showed combatants fleeing on foot, abandoning vehicles mid-operation. Doors hung open, engines still warm. Not a single radar ping or retaliatory launch followed the assault. The Houthis, known for their endurance and coordination, were disoriented and disconnected. The unseen battle, electronic warfare, and ISR dominance, what made this strike unique wasn't just its speed or precision. It was the depth of intelligence integration. The MQ-4C Triton drone gathered live video and thermal imagery, but also picked up faint electronic signals from buried communication lines. Signals intelligence, SIGINT, and electronic warfare, EW tools, created a battlefield map so detailed that US pilots could time their bomb releases to the second. Electronic jamming from the Growlers wasn't just meant to disable radar, it flooded Houthi frequencies with white noise, faking the approach of a much larger air fleet. This deception bought the strike team precious seconds and triggered panic among defenders who were overwhelmed before the first bomb even dropped. The result, a decapitation strike without resistance. Strategic clarity, tactical surprise. This operation marked a fundamental shift in American doctrine. No longer content with reactionary posture, the US opted for preemptive disruption. Raziza was not chosen at random. It was a deliberately timed response rooted in months of intelligence gathering, technological surveillance, and battlefield psychology. For years, the assumption was that striking a port tied to civilian life would risk diplomatic fallout. But Raziza's dual-use status, fuel and firepower, rendered it a legitimate target under international law. And that, perhaps, is the strike's most profound message. If your infrastructure becomes a weapon, it becomes a target. Echoes in Tehran, Moscow, and Beijing beyond Yemen, the shockwave rippled through capitals not publicly involved. In Tehran, planners re-examined how far they could push without crossing invisible thresholds. In Moscow, where hybrid warfare is a doctrine, the US strike raised eyebrows. Would Washington now apply this logic elsewhere? Even in Beijing, analysts quietly noted the implications. China's strategic investments in dual-use infrastructure in the South China Sea suddenly looked more vulnerable. The message was unmistakable. Civilian shields will no longer provide immunity when used to camouflage warfighting capabilities. The new rules of engagement. This was not a symbolic display. It was a strategic recalibration. For years, US foreign policy in the region was anchored in containment. Carrier strike groups patrolled, but rarely struck. Every provocation met a proportionate, often diplomatic response. But the playbook has changed. The United States has reasserted its capacity to act unilaterally, swiftly, and with surgical precision. Raziza is no longer a name on a map. It is a cautionary tale, a visual reminder that strategic assets used for warfare can and will be eliminated. As the sun rose over Yemen, the smoke column from Raziza was visible from space. Its message lingered in the haze. The era of silent tolerance is over. The fallout? Global diplomacy and domestic messaging. In the hours following the attack, US intelligence intercepted frantic Houthi communications. Find any generators that still work. Is this a cyber attack? The command center is down. Their confusion was understandable. This wasn't just a bombing run, it was a synchronized assault across physical and digital domains. The US didn't just strike a location, it dismantled a system. Global analysts debated the long-term consequences. Some hailed the operation as a necessary reset, others warned of escalation. At the UN, emergency meetings were convened. While American officials emphasized the legitimacy of the strike, adversarial nations pushed resolutions questioning its proportionality. In Washington, the president addressed the nation, highlighting the need to protect global trade and deter hostile actors. Public response in the US was largely supportive. Veterans organizations, think tanks, and editorial boards praised the precision and restraint. However, voices from international NGOs expressed concern over setting precedents for striking dual-use sites. Lessons for the future. What Raziza means for asymmetric warfare. The strike on Raziza will be studied for years, not just for its success, but for its implications. It signals a new era where advanced surveillance, AI-based targeting, and electronic warfare are fully integrated into conventional military doctrine. More importantly, it sets a precedent. Any node, digital or physical, supporting hostile military action is now a viable target. That could include data centers, logistics hubs, or even mobile app infrastructures. The rules of war are evolving, and the United States has declared its intention to stay ahead. Looking forward, what comes next is uncertain. The Houthis may retaliate, tensions may rise, but one precedent has now been set. The US will not allow strategic assets masked as civilian infrastructure to exist unchallenged. The burden now lies with adversaries who must rethink the way they wage war. No longer can they hide behind oil depots, tunnels, or comm towers. If it powers a drone, fuels a missile, or transmits a kill order, it is fair game. Raziza taught that lesson in fire. Final thought. In war, the element of surprise is fleeting, but the element of strategy endures. The United States did not strike Raziza to make headlines. It struck to make history, and it did.